Welcome everyone to Coin New Yen Review channel. Before we dive into today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so more people can discover us. Enjoy the show. I found myself inhabiting the body of a wealthy, reckless young master. The system clutched my limitless black card, pointing at the drenched, pitiful second female lead soaked by the storm. The male and female leads were already together, leaving only the second female lead pining for the male lead in vain. She had fallen into the mire, ignored by all. My task was to use my wealth to help her rise again, to redeem her dark and broken life. Amid the system's fervent explanation, I learned that after her success, she would come to hate me for humiliating her dignity with money when she was at her lowest. She would plot against me, only regretting it after my death, admitting she had long since fallen in love with me. In her despair, she would kneel before my grave, weeping night after night in mournful remorse. Hearing this grim tale, I felt hot tears well in my eyes. I swiftly seized the black card. Flooring the accelerator, I sped past the dejected second female lead, splashing her with rainwater, then drove straight to the nearest mall, swiping my card to buy 13 cases of Mao Tai and 8 packs of Zhonghua, stuffing the trunk to the brim with clinking bottles. I had been poor for 24 years. Now thrust into this novel, I sought vengeance. Compared to her, I needed this black card more to redeem my own life. The car's trunk was packed to bursting. I wiped the sweat from my brow, slamming the trunk shut with a resounding clang. The system shouted frantically, "Host, I was sent to this world to redeem the second female lead. If I failed the task, I would face punishment." I nimbly slid beneath the car's wheels. Wasn't it just obliteration? No need to dawdle, take control of the car now. Run me over. The system roared with imposing authority, each threat more terrifying than the last. If I didn't complete the task, I'd be trapped in this world forever. The air froze for a moment. I quickly propped myself up, crawling out from under the wheels. The expensive watch on my wrist chimed with a crisp, clear ring. My voice trembled with excitement as I asked what it meant. The reward for not doing the task was to stay in this world forever, as the son of the richest man, waking each day to endless wealth. Every luxury store treating me as their most honored VIP, buying any car I desired. The system stammered, then tried to reason with me. Host, think of your parents. If I didn't return, how would they survive? I boldly patted my chest, assuring it not to worry. I had personally turned on the gas and lit the flame, sending everyone away in one fell swoop. Before transmigrating, they planned to sell me to work in the black mines of Myanmar, just to pay off their gambling debts. I fought the whole family for against one. In the end, I turned on the gas, dragging them all to oblivion. The system made one last desperate attempt, asking my name before transmigrating. Silence fell over everything. I stood triumphant, dragging my overflowing spoils back home. Passing the same road as before, I saw again the anxious, distressed face of the tragic second female lead, Liu Ryan. She stood under an eave, miserably dodging the rain, clutching her phone in her hand, dialing obsessively, call after call. I muted the phone on the passenger seat. Its screen flickered on and off countless times. The final call disconnected automatically. The screen lingered on the WeChat interface. Long stretches of green chat bubbles, records of transfers she had below them, was the last message Liu Ryan sent me that day. I shouldn't keep using money to trample and humiliate her dignity. Doing so only made her feel utterly disgusted. I never felt being showered with money was an insult. Before transmigrating, I had earned my university admission, yet my biased parents pointed at my nose, cursing loudly. Why bother studying? My grades weren't even good. I should go work in the town factory to support the family. That way they wouldn't have raised me for nothing. I carried my meager belongings, leaving their hypocritical faces behind. Boarding the train to university alone, taking out loans to pay my tuition. Penniless, I ran. In the dorms, I lived with a hot-tempered young master. The diamonds on his watch alone could cover my monthly expenses. I became his errand boy, happily fetching water and buying meals for him daily, even wearing the clothes he discarded. I accepted them with a grin. Everyone mocked me for having no spine, calling me a lapdog, abandoning dignity for money. but I calculated clearly. One meal run earned me 100 yuan. Picking up deliveries or fetching water got me at least 50. The out-of-season clothes he tossed me were all designer brands. Their soft, snug fit far surpassed the worn, tattered rags in my wardrobe. A starving person, when handed a bowl of plain porridge, feels gratitude and devours it eagerly, not nitpicking over a few grains of sand, shouting that the porridge is unclean. With him I sailed through for years of university, even saving a few tens of thousands. But Liu Ryan was different. Each time I sent her money, she silently accepted it, then bristled with thorns, loudly proclaiming her grievances, defending her precious pride. She couldn't bear to part with the money, yet wanted others to kneel and offer it to her, eating soft rice with a hard attitude. The rain poured tirelessly, drenching the earth, driving away the summer heat. I drove back to the villa, struggling to haul the bags inside. A pile of understated luxury boxes lay in the center of the living room, occupying half the space. Leaning closer, I could smell the faint, elegant aroma of maotai. The scent of money lifted my spirits. The system, seeing me lost in bliss, couldn't hold back. Hostet pleaded, have pity on the second female lead and redeem her. Her unrequited love had driven her to depression. I crawled in the shadows of my own. Darkness had been poured for 24 years. My depression outdid hers. If it said one more word, I'd spiral into depression tonight. Instantly silencing the system, the housekeeper Liu Ma emerged from the kitchen and glanced behind me. Not seeing Liu Ryan, her expression soured. She spoke with a hint of reproach, addressing me as Mr. Fang. Hadn't I gone to pick up Miss Liu? With such heavy rain, how could I return alone, leaving Miss Liu behind? I raised cold eyes to meet hers. Liu Ma's face radiated duty, as if Liu Ryan were the true master of this villa, and I'm merely an interloper. Liu Ryan was the famed beauty of camping school, with a moderately pretty face and a faded skirt hem, standing in the dappled sunlight under the trees. She had enchanted me completely. At school, the gap between us wasn't so stark, but after graduation, entering society, each returned to their rightful class. With no background, she hit walls everywhere. Her career stagnated, and the male lead she adored was entangled with the female lead, plunging her into despair. She moved like a walking corpse. I brought her to live in the villa, preparing the finest guest room on the second floor for her. Now Liu Ryan had lived here for over a year. In that time, she was kind and gentle to everyone in the villa, exceedingly gracious. Liu Ma once broke an expensive set of porcelain. Per the contract, I proposed deducting the cost from her wages. Liu Ryan, standing nearby, said lightly, to forgive where forgiveness was due. They were just a few bowls. Did I have to be so aggressive? When would I stop humiliating others with money? Her words nailed me to a pillar of shame, as if I were truly a vile, unforgivable villain. She gave her warmth to others, leaving only cold detachment for me. The system was laughable. It wanted me to redeem a woman who had merely stumbled in love. Compared to her, I was the one who needed to save my own battered soul. Wasn't I Miss Liu? I sneered. When did this house gain another mistress? Liu Ma, who pays your salary now? Haven't you figured that out? Liu Ma's expression stiffened. She opened her mouth to speak, but the villa door swung open. Liu Ryan, drenched in rain, swiped her fingerprint to enter. Behind her trailed a frail, pale boy. That was the male lead. She had brought the male lead to my villa. The system eagerly explained. The male and female leads had a falling out. The lovesick second female lead saw her chance, eagerly bringing him back. At school, their love was grand and passionate, mocked by others as the most romantic CEO and popper girl. But in society, the script flipped to a poor boy aiming to climb the social ladder, yet to inherit the family business. He needed a highborn goddess of equal status. Their love couldn't withstand the slightest storm. The elite couldn't stoop to hold hands with the lowly, and the lowly craved equal standing. After a fight, the male lead stormed back to his spare tire. The second female lead, Liu Ryan's face lit up with joy, believing her devotion had finally seen the light. She rushed into the rain to bring the male lead home, and I, out of concern for her, had stooped to driving out to welcome her and the male lead's return. Liu Ryan frowned at me calling my name. Why didn't I answer her calls? Did I know she stood in the rain waiting for me for ages? Liu Ma, full of worrying, quickly handed over to dry towels, turning to scold me as well. Why had I returned alone, Mr. Fang, and bought all these things recklessly? Liu Ryan noticed the scattered luxury bags. Her face darkened unpleasantly calling my name. I shouldn't keep acting like a spoiled young master. Did I think money made me superior? Wasting money like this was for whose benefit? Why couldn't I change my bad habits? Every time I spent money, she would scold me with a cold face, as if I were spending her money to get closer to her and to protect her fragile pride. I hadn't bought new clothes in ages, nor dined at high-end restaurants. Even so, she often glowered at me, complaining about my extravagance. I frowned at her. What did my spending have to do with her? Or had she lived here so long she thought she owned the place, truly believing everything belonged to her? Liu Ryan's face paled instantly. My words were sharp, crushing her precious pride, trampling it into the ground. I had always minded her dignity, rehearsing every word in my mind, fearing I might upset her. Her pride was sensitive and fragile, needing both careful nurturing and a fortune to sustain. Liu Ma tried to speak, but Liu Ryan cut in. I waved a hand to silence Liu Ma. She was fired, to pack her things and leave immediately, and the cost of the broken porcelain would be deducted from her month's wages. Liu Ma cried out in shock, calling me Mr. Fang. On what grounds was I firing her? She had done nothing wrong. Liu Ryan, rubbing her temples, expressed her displeasure. I had never known poverty, so how could I understand how ugly it was to force people with money? She was wrong. I had known poverty, true poverty. Too poor to buy a pen, too poor to afford a meal, poor enough to scavenge food from trash bins, stuffing dry discarded buns into my mouth, stumbling through high school, poor enough that when the rich kid in college tossed me 100 yuan for an errand, I clutched the red bill, flipping it over and over, too excited to sleep all night. But I knew being poor wasn't like her, taking others' money, then turning to curse them, insulting the giver. Fine, I stared into her eyes. Liu Ma could stay, but her wages would now be paid by Miss Liu. Liu Ryan choked on her words. Her lips pursed silent. She couldn't bear to spend her money. Even though I had sent her so much, she only spent it on herself, buying outfits or gifts for the male lead, never once giving me so much as a token of gratitude. As Liu Ma was dragged away by the butler, she sobbed, begging for another chance. Gu Baiken, standing behind, bit his lip. First, he enviously eyed the pile of luxury goods and Maotai, then tugged at Liu Ryan's sleeve, nervously saying, Ryan Fang Yuan is just jealous, since she brought me here. Perhaps I should leave. His shoulders slumped, dejected. Turning to go, Liu Ryan grabbed his wrist. It was late and the rain was pouring. If he wandered out, what if he caught a fever? He could stay here tonight. She'd take him to shower first. Then, ignoring me, she tried to lead Gu Baiken to the second floor. Liu Ryan lived in the largest south-facing guest room on the second floor, complete with a walk-in closet and bathroom, cleaned daily by maids. I quickly spoke up. Liu Ryan turned back impatiently, calling my name, advising me to know when to stop. She had no time to waste arguing with me. The one she loved had always been Baiken. To her, I was only ever a brother. I was a month older than her. Indeed, a brother. The system interjected, suggesting I treat her like a real sister and redeem her a little, so it could complete its task. Oh, and my real sister. What was the most she ever said to me? What was it? I could almost see Fang Rou viciously grabbing my head, her bloated face looming before me. I mimicked her tone. Other brothers went out to work, earning money for their sisters. Why did I refuse? If I didn't go to the factory, where would she get money for a house or car? She'd beat me to death today. The system fell silent again. My eyes burned red. Liu Ryan's face merged with Fang Rao's. Hatred surged through me. I grabbed a nearby vase, hurling it at her with all my might. Tears faintly wet my pillow, accompanied by Gu Baiken's scream. The vase shattered at her feet, splinters scattering across the floor. Liu Ryan stumbled back, startled, then reacting. She shielded Gu Baiken behind her, her face twisted, demanding what madness possessed me. I must apologize to Baiken immediately, or she'd move out of my villa tonight. I laughed unrestrained, pointing at the wide open villa door. I told her to go, and to repay a year's rent, along with all the money I'd given her. The rain poured outside. Liu Ryan's face flickered in the lightning, her hands clenched into fists. Her hatred for me unmasked. What did she hate me for? For giving her money, for helping her start a business, for using my connections to pave her way. Half a year later, I heard Liu Ryan hiss my name through gritted teeth. I should know. If she walked out that door today, she'd never return. Playing hard to get never worked on me. I drawled, so what? Did a parasite like her think I'd want her back? The color drained from her face. Before this, I had never spoken to her so harshly. Gu Baiken couldn't hold back calling my name. How could I, with my wealth, insult others like this? Ryan would surely succeed. She was no less than anyone. Of course Liu Ryan would succeed. In the novel, I poured everything into helping her start a company, using all my connections to clear her path. With such a smooth road, she could easily amass billions. But now, without my help, Liu Ryan was penniless, left with only her stubborn pride. And Gu Baiken, who dreamed of marrying into wealth, still willing to stay by her side as her spare tire. Liu Ryan took Gu Baiken's hand and left the villa, their steps slow and reluctant, as if waiting for someone to beg them to stay, until they stood outside, the iron gate slamming shut behind them. Liu Ryan still clung to the idea I'd regretted, struck by the reality that defied her. Shock and resentment surged across her face. I stood outside, utterly lost and uncertain. Inside the villa, the system cautiously observed me. My bloodshot eyes met its tentative suggestion to seek a therapist. Perhaps I should consult a psychologist. Compared to the lovesick second female lead, I resembled a brooding, shadowy figure far more. The psychologist sat before me, holding the personality test I had filled out. Following protocol, he asked me, Mr. Fang, what I believed was the greatest trigger for my uncontrollable emotions. I leaned back in the chair, spitting out a single word with a blank expression: poverty. As that word landed, the massive gold watch on my wrist dazzled his eyes. The psychologist's jaw dropped. After a long pause, he pressed on, asking with effort if I had any obsessive-impulsive tendencies in life. I thought carefully. Only by buying heaps of things to fill the house did I feel a sense of security, no longer fearing I'd have a meal today but none tomorrow. Sometimes I felt like a hamster, frantically hoarding grain, desperately cramming food into my cheeks. The psychologist removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes, his gaze deliberately avoiding my gold watch. Scratching his nearly bald head, he reached a conclusion he could scarcely believe. Based on the test results, I had lived long in an oppressive, hungry environment, carrying immense psychological pressure. He suggested I follow my instincts, buying things to pile up at home, to ease my anxiety. My phone chimed with a notification. I opened it to see a message from a friend, Fang Yuan. The plot of land Liu, the campus beauty, had her eye on, was going up for auction tomorrow. Let's meet at the auction. That land could appreciate significantly in the future. I mused thoughtfully that if I secured it, the profits could fund several elementary schools, helping children who couldn't afford education return to class. This warm vision of the future took me back to the years before I became a malicious, supporting character, when I too craved familial warmth and dreamed of never worrying about food or clothing again. Without the frantic desperation of twisting open a gas canister, I immediately replied, I'd definitely be there tomorrow. The auction hall buzzed with people. I slung an arm around Li Fest's shoulder, devouring 4 pieces of braised pork in a row. He grimaced with disgust. Didn't I always nag about losing weight? Why was my appetite so huge today? Soon he grabbed my arm, shaking it. But he liked me a bit chubbier, so thin a gust of wind might knock me over. I forced a smile. It wasn't a good appetite. I was genuinely terrified, afraid this meal would be my last. So I developed a habit of stuffing food in my mouth whenever I could. Li Fei glanced back casually, as if spotting a new world. Pointing behind me, he gasped. Wasn't that Liu, the campus beauty I liked? Why was she here with another man? I turned, only to see Shen Yin bringing Qiao Jing to the auction. I questioned the system. Didn't this place require verified funds to enter? How did she get in? Did she rob a bank overnight? The system explained I had once given her an invitation. She entered as my Plusen. Liu Ryan was still wearing the same clothes from when she was kicked out yesterday. Cleaned but not properly ironed. Creases betraying her financial strain. She stared at me for a long time. Resentment and anxiety gathering at the corners of her mouth, finally curling into a knowing smirk, as if everything were under her control. She probably thought I was here for her. After all this plot of land, I had mentioned to her several times in private, repeatedly promising that on her 24th birthday, I'd gift it to her, to wish her a soaring career. As the land auction began, Liu Ryan's expression grew even prouder and more confident, utterly assured, perfectly composed. After rounds of bidding, I secured the undeveloped land for 300 million. The host enthusiastically presented the auction contract, congratulating me, Mr. Fang, on winning the development rights. Once I signed, the land would be my private property. I started to step forward, but Liu Ryan rose calmly. Under everyone's gaze, she reclaimed all her lost dignity in that moment. With a proud smile, she said to me, Fang Yuan, for the sake of you buying this land for me, I forgave your reckless tantrum last night. If I apologize to Baiken, she'd move back to the villa tonight. A 300 million plot. She accepted it with ease. Not a trace of gratitude on her face, only excitement and entitlement. Liu Ryan didn't know. Beneath this familiar exterior, a different soul had already taken residence. She'd soon realize, getting money from me was harder than pulling my teeth. I stayed seated, looking her up and down. Liu Ryan's smile didn't reach her eyes. I sneered, who said this land was for you? Liu Ryan froze for a moment. I scoffed. Did she think she was worth a 300 million plot? Was her skirt hem lined with gold? Soft laughter rippled through the auction hall. Li Fei grabbed my sleeve, tears of excitement in his eyes. He said, Fang Yuan, after 5 years of playing the fool, I'd finally recovered today. I wouldn't relapse, would I? Liu Ryan stood under the lights, like a clown on display. Humiliation and shame shattered her pride. She stared at me intensely, as if meeting me for the first time. Coincidentally, we had indeed known each other for less than a day. The system wanted me to redeem her. It had truly chosen the wrong person. I, a brooding mess, could barely save myself. How could I spare the effort to save a lofty, lovesick woman? The auction hall's whispers clearly reached Liu Ryan's ears. Words of kept men and sugar babies. Gu Baiken couldn't hold back, confronting me, Fang Yuan. Why wouldn't I give the land to Liu Ryan? I narrowed my eyes slightly. Why didn't he come up with 300 million to help her? Gu Baiken fell silent. It seemed that if a man was gloomy and obsessive, everyone was expected to support him unconditionally. I too was a bitter crawling shadow. Why didn't everyone rush to fund me? Liu Ryan, with a flushed face, grabbed Gu Baiken's hand and fled the auction, spitting at me viciously, Fang Yuan. Even if I begged her in this lifetime, she'd never return to my villa. The lovesick second female lead and her male lead vanished completely from my world, without me standing between them. I thought Liu Ryan must now be living her dream, thriving and triumphant. On the third day after securing the land, I stepped into a high-end clothing store at the mall. My fingers grazed the latest designs. The soft fabric truly soothed my inner anxiety. Suddenly, the system let out a long sigh in my mind. I shot back, what's wrong? I hadn't gone mad these past few days. Giving it time to start sighing. The lovesick second female lead was faring poorly. It kindly showed me a glimpse of Liu Ryan. After leaving the villa, she counted her remaining money, renting a one-room apartment in the city's slums. In the sweltering summer, the place was a stifling oven, yet she, like a victorious general, held her beloved male lead, saying tenderly to Baiken to give her some time should surely ensure he lived well. She still lacked startup capital, but with enough money, she was certain she could succeed in business. out of her sight. Gu Baikon's face twisted with disdain at the shabby surrounding. Though born ordinary, he had loved the female lead passionately, lived in lavish mansions, dined at the priciest restaurants, slept in hotels costing thousands a night. How could he settle for returning to the slums a man once loved by a tiger? A hound was merely a diversion. The system tentatively suggested, perhaps we could redeem her a little. After all, it had KPI assessments too. If I, the host, failed the task, it would lower its task completion rate. At that moment, I stood in the fitting room, holding a thin silk scarf. I decisively wrapped it around my neck, rolling my eyes and croaking. Dare to say another word, let's hear it. Believe me, I'll strangle myself right here. The system wailed, calling me host. Couldn't we sit down calmly and talk? I loosened the scarf, my tone shifting. But it was right. The second female lead was indeed struggling. After all, in this city where every inch was gold, even a slum pigeon cage cost a fortune. The system danced with excitement, asking if I'd start redeeming her. I pulled out my phone, flipping to Liu Ryan's WeChat. She'd been gone from the villa for days, but hadn't deleted my contact. Her profile lingered in my list. Her moments updated thrice daily, each post flaunting her newfound love. Her last WeChat message still lingered on her bold declaration. I sent a message Liu Ryan. The other side instantly showed typing, likely editing and re-editing. After a long pause, she replied, Fang Yuan. Wasn't it too late to contact her now? Too late. It's never too late to collect a debt. I replied clearly that it wasn't too late. The money I transferred to her this year, the rent for staying at my place, I'd had my lawyer compile it all. Sent to her email, to repay it on time. The other side fell silent. Even the typing status vanished. I waited ages for no response. Liu Ryan once thought my money was an insult. Now when I demanded repayment, she clung tightly to that insult, not returning a single cent. Seeing her silence, I deliberately sent her Liu Ma's WeChat. Liu Ma adored her, treating her like a daughter. Now that I'd fired her, if she wanted to hire a housekeeper, she could contact her. 8,000 a month, food and lodging included with triple pay on holidays. Still no response. I waved my phone at the system saying, see, it's not that I won't redeem her. She's ignoring me. The system fell completely silent. The land I'd won was quickly put to use. The new project began in full swing. To attract investors, I sought out the book's greatest villain. The system initially tried to stop me. That was the villain, a woman who could shake the city with a stomp. I argued logically. If I didn't seek someone who could shake the city, should I find a slum woman whose stomps shook the ceiling below to throw money at me? The meeting went smoothly. Beneath this body, I was still the small-time Fang Yuan, clueless about investments and business. My only business knowledge came from before Transmigration, when the dorm's young master idol chatted in my ear that the key to business was sharing profits. Only when others gained would they continue working with you. He didn't just fund my education, he taught me practical lessons. Even my driver's license came when the young master, hating the grueling summer lessons, dragged me along for company, paying my registration fee. I pondered the concept of sharing profits, decisively changing the 60-40 profit split to a 3-year contract. On a whim, I ordered several bottles of expensive red wine, but I didn't expect the door to swing open and Liu Ryan to walk in carrying the wine. I hadn't seen her in over a month. She was much thinner and far more haggard. If at school, she was a melancholic campus beauty, now she was stained with dust and fatigue, the clarity in her eyes gone. This was the city's largest bar. Pretty girls shuttled around serving drinks. Liu Ryan blended in unremarkable. Holding the wine, she looked up, spotting only me and another unfamiliar woman in the VIP. She froze in disbelief for a moment, then rushed forward, grabbing my wrist. Her face dark, she demanded Fang Yuan. Who was she? Why was I alone with her here? I kicked toward her, aiming low, breaking free of her grip. Did I need to report my business dealings to her? Did she think she was my father? Liu Ryan's face flushed with anger and shame. Staring at me for a long time, she let out a faint sigh, as if surrendering. Or as if her long-held tension finally eased, she spoke slowly. Fang Yuan, I admitted defeat, knew I was working here, and had brought someone to provoke her. This past month, I hadn't contacted her. Wasn't it to make her realize who she truly loved? As I wished, she finally had to admit. She now loved me more than Baiken. She closed her eyes, as if severing ties with her past, or reluctantly stepping into a new life. Fang Yuan shed returned to my side, promising no further private contact with Baiken, but she had one condition. I had to give her the land first. And Wed set 3 rules. I must retract the repayment list I sent her. My ears caught the hint of money slipping away. I interrupted in panic. She wanted the land fine, but my money too. She wanted land and money, and to repay kindness with betrayal. Was she a jinx? Getting involved with her would ruin me. In this book, I poured half my heart into making Liu Ryan a new elite. The first thing she did after standing firm was acquire the Fang family's company, kicking us off the board and teaming up with other firms to crush the business my parents had painstakingly built, leaving the Fang family no chance to recover. My parents soon died in despair. Men and women thought so differently. When a man loved a woman, he'd spend a bit to keep her comfortable, like raising a bird or a cat, never fostering her ability to stand on her own. A woman could only get a little money, her only choice to dress up for his pleasure. Every cent spent on her ultimately served the man. When a woman loved a man, she'd bring him into money-making circles, teaching him step by step to stand firm, watching his grow bigger, even surpassing her, only for him to reveal his true nature and chase younger girls, leaving her a discarded, wilted flower. I'd been poor, brutally poor, so I valued money more than life itself. No one could touch my wealth. Liu Ryan, did she need me to spell it out? I no longer loved her. Could she get out of my sight and vanish from my life forever? Standing close, I could clearly see Liu Ryan's lips trembling slightly. She had never believed I could suddenly stop loving her. My past love was too intense, wrapping her so tightly in affection. She believed it would never fade. Impossible stared into my unwavering eyes. How could I not love her? Fang Yuan, I was just angry, wasn't I? She was too poor, unable to believe a rich young master could love her. So she kept testing my limits to prove my love wouldn't change. Now she was certain I truly loved her. So we should stop fighting and return to how things were before, living as we used to. Okay, she was pleading, her eyes shimmering with faint love was a luxury only the truly wealthy could afford. I barely a month into this transmigration couldn't afford such extravagance for her. Seeking love from me was futile. The one who could love her was long gone. She stared into my eyes, searching for traces of past affection, hoping to find the love that once was. I searched her eyes for a long time, but found not a trace of love within them. Only strangeness and wariness lingered. Had she not appeared before me of her own accord, I would have forgotten entirely what the lovesick second female lead of this novel even looked like. She was right. How could a young master like me ever fall for someone as penniless as her, now that she had proven it? Could she leave? Liu Ryan was afraid. For the first time I saw fear on her face. This month in the slums had been far from pleasant. To make ends meet, she had to work in this chaotic place peddling drinks. Liu Ryan forced a smile, as if convincing herself it couldn't be true. I had loved her so deeply. How could I suddenly stop loving her? She grabbed my wrist, trying to pull me outside. I should come with her. Fang Yuan, to talk alone. She urged me to follow her out. Her grip was strong in that moment, like my father's hands hardened from years of farm work. On the day I was tricked into returning home to help support the family, I argued fiercely with my father for a long time, until he grabbed my hand just like this, dragging me toward the room. He shouted for me to come out. Fang Yuan, did I think university made me too good for them? If I didn't work, no one would like me. That scene overlapped with this one. No one saw my eyes turn bloodshot, as if something had invaded my mind. I screamed, grabbing a nearby beer bottle, and smashed it hard against Liu Ryan's head. With a bang, she clutched her head, blood seeping through her fingers. Shock and pain froze on her face. She couldn't believe that I, who had loved her so much, could strike her so ruthlessly. Glass shards scattered across the floor, while the villain shrank into the corner of the sofa, clutching her head, her terrified eyes peeking out, shouting that would change the profit split to 60-40. No, 50-50 was fine. Hitting her was enough. I couldn't hit the villain too. She'd have her secretary bring a new contract, ordering Zedong to print a new one with a 50-50 split. If he didn't hurry, she'd be dead by next week. Amid the chaos, the system wailed, clinging to me, admitting it was wrong, pleading host. I should call the psychologist again. It would never make me a brooding wreck redeem the second female lead again. I sat before the psychologist once more, handing him the completed personality test. The psychologist vigorously rubbed the few hairs left on his head, staring at the paper as if it had burned holes through it, then cautiously asked me, Mr. Fan, what I thought was the root cause of my latest emotional breakdown. I leaned back in the chair, the scene replaying vividly. I had recalled painful memories. Those agonies clung to me like my parents' flesh, trapping me inescapable. The psychologist seemed to find a breakthrough. His voice lightened as he asked, could I describe what I was doing at the time? I was signing a contract for the land I bought for $300 million. Wed agreed on a 70-30 profit split in my favor, but she insisted on 50-50. By my calculations, the partner had given up at least $200 million in profit. The last hairs on his head fell out completely. He wiped his face hard, taking a deep breath. He concluded, based on the test feedback, I was likely triggered by painful memories. Perhaps I should avoid recreating similar scenarios. For example, trying to avoid situations involving $200 million in profit. He spoke without conviction. I wasn't eager to agree, but I took his earlier advice to heart. To minimize recreating similar scenarios, I pulled up the repayment list I'd sent Liu Ryan, adding a new item for medical expenses. The bottle had cracked her head. Compensation was due. I asked the system unprompted, how much should I pay for a head injury? Depending on the severity, minor injuries cost $20,000. Serious ones could run into hundreds of thousands. Since the lovesick second female lead was still alive, it proved the injury wasn't severe. I generously deducted $20,000, then sent her the remaining 10 million yuan bill. When Liu Ryan called, I hung up instantly and blocked her. After doing all this, I let out a long breath. Li Fei's call came through, asking if I was free to hang out Fang Yuan. He had gossip about Liu, the campus beauty. His voice dripped with schadenfreude. She couldn't pay her debts. She wanted Gu Baiken to sell the luxury goods, but he fought with her and left, taking everything and reconciling with his ex-girlfriend. In this novel, the male and female leads, after many twists, got back together, continuing their saga of a wealthy CEO and a slum girl. While I, who had funded the lovesick second female lead, drew a clear line with her, returning to my life as a wealthy heir. Everything circled back to the start, leaving Liu Ryan alone at the finish line, her loved ones and those she loved slipping through her fingers. Not one had she held on to. At school, Liu Ryan fell for Gu Baiken at first sight, for a laughably simple reason. Penniless and downtrodden, she stood in the cafeteria, tray in hand, unable to pay for a simple meal. The male lead saw her and generously swiped his card. From that moment, love sprouted. So much so that the 10 million I spent on Liu Ryan couldn't compare to the 20 yuan the male lead once gave her. The second female lead wasn't worthy of 10 million. She was only fit to hold a 20 yuan meal. Over long years, slowly savoring that stale meal laced with love, I thought I'd never see Liu Ryan again. Driving back to the villa after parting with Li Fei, I was surprised to find a dejected figure squatting outside. She seemed to have waited for me a long time. Digging deep into my memories, I barely recognized the once haughty lovesick second female. Seeing my car, a spark lit up in Liu Ryan's eyes. She cautiously called out my name, Fang Yuan. I had blocked all her contact methods. She had no choice, so she waited here for my return. Gone was her former arrogance. A faint scar remained on her forehead. Life's hardships had etched weariness onto her face. I recalled the psychologist's words. To avoid recreating triggering scenarios, and Liu Ryan always brought back my most painful memories. Instinctively, I moved to bypass her and enter the villa. Liu Ryan grew anxious, starting to reach for my arm, but recalling the bottle I'd smashed on her head half a month ago, she abruptly pulled back, instead blocking my path. She admitted Fang Yuan. She had done many things to wrong me, and blamed herself for not seeing her own heart clearly. My wealth was too great. She always felt unworthy of me, so she kept rejecting my love. Her words were earnest, tears shimmering in her eyes. I stepped back frowning. She treated this relationship like glass, testing its strength over and over. As she wished, the glass had finally shattered. She had proven what she wanted, yet she was unwilling, desperate to piece the glass back together. But she hadn't passed my test. So between us, it was over. The system made one last desperate plea. Why should I take what even the male lead didn't want? Was I a recycling station? The system truly fell silent. Liu Ryan's face took on a theatrical expression. She couldn't believe I'd withdrawn my love, nor that someone who loved her so deeply now held no trace of affection in his eyes. All this time, she had maintained a delicate balance, taking money from me while giving love to Gu Baiken, desperately hoping to hold onto both. But in the end, she grasped nothing. I stepped past her to return to the villa. Liu Ryan suddenly knelt before me, tears streaking her face, her voice hoarse. She called my name Fang Yuan. I must be lying. How could I not love her? I had loved her so much before. How could it vanish so suddenly? She knelt on the ground, her tears blurring her vision, missing the growing redness in my eyes. The day I turned on the gas valve, my mother had knelt like this too, using filial duty to bind me. She pleaded, Fang Yuan, I raised you all these years. Why wouldn't I think of the family? I was already 24, but always so selfish, caring only for myself, not my family. She knelt before me. She kowtowed, begging me to work in the factory, to support my brother. Her head thudded loudly, as if that could make me an unforgivable villain, a pliable dough under her moral coercion. Now Liu Ryan knelt beside me, merging with my mother's aged figure. Compared to my father and brother, I hated my mother more, hated her weakness, hated how after enduring so much suffering, she dragged me down her path of pain, hated even more how she lied about cancer to lure me home. The once pitiable victim had become a malevolent curse. The blood in my eyes grew darker, past and present intertwined. In the moment my reason was consumed, I seized Liu Ryan's hair, slamming her head to the ground, hysterically cursing that if she loved kowtowing so much, she should kowtow her fill today. Even if she kowtowed to death, I wouldn't let her control me. I wouldn't let my life be hijacked, nor become fodder for my family to drain. By the end of my rant, I couldn't tell who stood before me, until the butler dragged my frenzied self into the villa. Only then did I regain a shred of clarity. I glanced back at Liu Ryan. Her forehead was smeared with blood. This was for the best. From her despairing eyes, I knew Liu Ryan had finally realized the truth, that not only did I no longer love her, I hated her with a burning passion. When the psychologist came for the third time, his head was completely bald. This time he didn't ask me to fill out a test, declaring the forms useless. Had given up entirely, cutting straight to the point with one question: Mr. Fang, who was present each time I lost control of my emotions? I thought careful Liu Ryan. She was always there. The psychologist slammed the table. The root of my problem was clear. This jinx, this harbinger of doom. I should steer clear of her from now on, keeping her at a 10,000-mile distance. He guaranteed I'd never have another episode. A miracle doctor like Hua to reborn, diagnosing the problem instantly. I had an epiphany on the spot, thanking him profusely as I sent him off, committing his words to memory. My future life would never again include the lovesick second female lead. The land I'd bought was now bustling with development. What puzzled me was the novel's greatest villain every time we met, brought to bodyguards, and stayed 3 meters away, refusing to come closer, though the book described her as a stern, unyielding figure. In reality, she was an endearing, laughable little thing. Likeable despite the discrepancy. She probably regretted the 50-50 profit split. And after I bought the land, I had no startup capital left. She'd invested a full $400 million in our partnership, yet held equal shares with me. No wonder she felt regret. In that moment, I felt I was the novel's true villain, plucking feathers from every passing goose, leaving marks on every person I crossed. I often lingered at the construction site to check progress. After failing to catch me at the villa's entrance, Liu Ryan spent ages tracking me down, starting to stake out the site. I took the psychologist's words as gospel, hiring bodyguards, who drove her away the moment they spotted her from afar. From a distance, I heard the lovesick second female lead's hysterical cries. She only wanted to say one thing to me, Fang Yuan. It would take just a minute of my time. I curled my lip in disdain. With a $700 million project before me, where did I have a minute to chat with this jinx? Li Effie, I scoffed, rolling his eyes at her. She was only here for money, tired of the slum's pigeon cage. She must miss the villa's comfort. In the early days after leaving the villa, Liu Ryan had dreamed of starting a business, but the bosses, once friendly with her, ignored her after learning we'd fallen out. Her proud network of connections had crumbled. She ran herself ragged with an immature software pitch, but no one gave it a glance. Gone was her former glory. My lawyer hounded her for the $998 million. The $2,000 ID deducted was my voluntary compensation for her forehead injury. I was always fair with money, never cheating anyone, but no one would get a penny more from me. Unable to pay, Liu Ryan sued the male lead in desperation, demanding he return the gifts she'd given him. Thus the lovesick second female lead and the male lead parted ways for good. Without me, the malicious side character between them, they ended up facing off in court. Their past love utterly gone. After the fallout, Gu Baiken settled comfortably as the female lead's devoted man, no longer chasing status. I didn't care about that. I only cared that my $998 million was finally repaid. On the day the mall construction finished, the system silent for so long suddenly cheered in my ear. It was leaving host. My rare twinge of conscience ached briefly. I apologized for failing its task and hurting its KPI, but the system exclaimed its task was complete. Its cheers echoed in my head. Only then did I understand. The system's task was to redeem the lovesick second female lead, to free her from her dark obsession. I had succeeded. She now had not a shred of gloom or fixation. Only life's hardships and an empty purse remained. She had no time for depression, as her deliveries were about to time out, nor time for obsession, lest she receive bad reviews. Well done, I praised myself. I had successfully redeemed a brooding soul. When the second round of investment came in, I donated to build several elementary schools, helping girls in the mountains who couldn't afford education return to school. I had lost control of my emotions and ages. The nightmares from before Transmigration were fading. On the mall's opening day, I received my first dividend, coinciding with moving to a new home and my 26th birthday. I gathered with Li Fei and the villain at my new place, during which Li Fei ordered food online. The moment the door opened unexpectedly, Liu Ryan appeared, carrying heavy bags of food, handing them to the housekeeper as usual, about to speak when she froze, spotting me seated in the center of the sofa. For a moment she seemed dazed. Though only 2 years had passed without speaking, it felt like we'd lived a lifetime apart. She hesitated, then said to me, Fang Yuan, she had dreamed that I helped her start a company and lifted her to the status of a new elite in the city. But her youthful pride made her see my money as an insult, leading her to repay kindness with betrayal, bankrupting the Fang family and causing my death. Her voice trembled with a sob by the end. She might have dreamed the original plot, a life of wealth, that turned out to be a fleeting illusion upon waking. The four of us in the room wore varied expressions. My distant gaze met her pained one, not a ripple of emotion in my eyes. Li Fei glared at Liu Ryan, fuming, rolling his eyes. Liu Ryan, her edges smoothed by society, still looked at me with longing, hoping I'd have a change of heart, yearning for me to love her again, to pull her from the mire. Only the novel's greatest villain, nestled expertly into the sofa, clutching her head shouting what we were staring at. To close the door quick. This Mr. Fang went wild every time he saw her. If we didn't shut it, she'd be dead by next week. The door slammed shut, dividing us into two worlds, never to intersect. The world Liu Ryan once scorned, she could never step into again. The door stood as a barrier, locking her out of my life forever.